Hi guys, welcome back. I believe we are on part 4. I don't know, don't pay attention to what I say, just the description box or the title. Read the title, whatever part it says, that's the one we're on. I start to lose count when I do these, especially if I film more than one part in the same day. Anyway, we are ready for the next part. Okay, so last time we had glued those on the insides of folder 1 and 2, and then we had glued this on the inside, or folders 1 and 3. We had done the text page inside folder 2, and we had used the other half of those to glue onto our flaps. So what we're ready to do now is put our hinges on to attach our folders together. So before we can put decorative paper on these sides, we need to put our hinges on so that our paper can go over the top of those. So remember the hinges that we made? Okay, little 1/4-inch spines and then flaps to glue on each folder. So this one I have written down as hinge 1, so that's the one we're going to use first. And it's just as easy as gluing this flap to file folder number 1. And what I want to do is I want to put the score line, or that fold line, right up next to the fold line of the file folder. That way my spines match. So they're right up next to each other, okay? And I also want to make sure that it is correct spacing up and down. You know, I don't want it hanging off. Okay. I just want to make sure that meets up nice and even. Yeah, that will work. Okay. So then now we need to put some glue on this side, and we'll glue it to that file folder. I've got some excess glue. I am a little heavy-handed when it comes to glue. I'm just going to put some glue on this one and do the same thing. This time though, because this folder is a little taller, I'm going to make sure the bottom lines up. I'm just going to turn it over so it's a little easier for me to see. Kind of tricky until the glue grabs. And this would be a time where you would really want to use maybe a fast grabbing glue or a double-sided tape. Glue that takes a long time to dry. It's just hard to try to keep it all held still long enough for it to dry. So I'm using 3-in-1 glue. It's a quick fast grab glue. It is rather stinky. It's an acetone-based glue, so it is kind of stinky, but I like using it for my paper projects because being an acetone-based glue and not a water-based glue, my papers don't get warped and kind of bubbly. Okay, so there's that one. And now we are going to do the same thing with spine number 2. And we're going to glue folder 2 to folder 3. So remember, folder 3 has the shell paper on the back, or it has the tab on the back, whatever paper you're using. You may not be using the same thing as me. So just going to do the same thing we did on the other one. Lining it up at the bottom and lining it up along the spine edge so that my spines are all in line. And I'm not going to get it perfect, but I'm going to try to get it the best I can. Okay, and now the last flap. Lining it up on the bottom, and then lining up my spine edges. Okay. That looks good. Nice and even for the most part. Okay. All right, so, and then as you can see later, I add an outside, like a spine cover is really all I call it. Kind of makes like a hollow back journal or hollow back book. We're going to do that part later. I'm not doing that right now, but we will be covering up the edges of this later. So, all right, that is that. So let me check that off our list. We're cruising right along. Okay, now inside of this part where we just placed hinge number 1, so it will be the area between folder 1 and folder 2. Okay, I used plain blue paper for that. So just some of the plain blue paper out of the digital kit is what I covered there. So I'm pretty sure I used those vertically again. Yeah. And then hang on to your extras or your scrap because we do use that. And then let me put my lid on my glue. That goes there between folder 1 and 2 where hinge number 1's at. That's what I'm using there is plain blue. And then back here between folder 2 and 3 where we just stuck the second hinge, I am using the plain tan or sand colored background, the plain tan. Okay, so I'm using those to cover those two sides. Okay, so I'm going to do that and then I'm going to come right back. I'm going to do that off of camera. So I'm just going to cut to fit, ink the edges, glue it on for both sets, and then I'll come right back. Okay, so glued those in. And now I'm going to use some of my scraps. I've been keeping everything. I'm not that we're going to use everything, but use some of my scraps, especially the blue and the tan that I just cut off. And what I'm going to do now is use my scraps to put here in the tab area. So scraps are good for this because, well, I mean, it's up to you. Like this front page, let's see, I glued that in. So you won't even be seeing inside there. The only way you would see inside is if you took the tag out and then peeked way down inside there. Then you could see that the piece of paper doesn't go all the way to the bottom. I mean, if you're worried about that, then by all means use a full sheet of paper. If you're not worried about it, like I'm not worried about it because nobody's ever going to look down in there, then I'm just going to use my scraps to fill up that spot. Yeah, so I'm just going to mark that where I need to, let's see, that'd be close enough, where I need to cut it. And then I'm going to go ahead and I will cut the top part into the tab shape, okay? And then I'll ink it and glue it down to fit in there. So I'm using scrap to cover that little bit, okay? And then inside here, I'm going to use my other blue scrap piece that I have. And did I do that? Yeah, I did. I don't know if I have enough blue scrap to do that one yet. Yeah, maybe I do. It'll work. Okay, I'm going to use some of my blue scrap. Oh, I even have this blue scrap here. I'm going to use my blue scrap to cut a piece for this side to go in there and a piece for this side to go in there. So I'm going to cut that, ink it, and I'll glue that on so that way it covers that flap. You don't have to do all this if you don't want to. If you like the file folder tab showing, then by all means do that. And then on the back side, I think I sat it down on my ink pad. That's okay, I'm going to cover it anyway. On the back side, I'm going to use some of the tan paper, I think. And I'm going to cover that one. All right, so I'm going to cut those to fit and cover these 3 tab areas, and then I'll come right back again. Okay, so all my tabs are covered now. So the next thing I want to do is get my flaps out, the large ones that we had created, these. And let's see, this one's going to go in the front. So that's the one I have the tab at the bottom and the hinges on the left. So I'm putting that one in the front. And it is going to go right here. Like so. Okay. So what I'm using to cover that one, just to make it look just like my other one, is I am using the C-fan paper. My lighting is so off. It's, this camera, I don't know. Let me try. Oop, that's too blue. Okay. All right. We're just going to live with it. It's giving everything a very warm tone. That's all right. I'm using the C-fan paper to cover both the front flap that goes here and the other one where I'm going to have the tab up and the fold on my right. And it is going to go back here. Okay. There we go. It's going to go back here. And so that I'm also using the C-fan paper for that. So C-fan paper on the front of this, C-fan paper on the front of that. And on the back of these, I am using the striped paper. So I'm using the C-fan paper on the front, striped paper on the back. I will cut those to fit, ink them, and glue them on off camera here in just a minute. One thing I noticed that I did not do on these when I cut them, and I did on my original book I made, was I finished the edge. So see how this edge is square? And on this one, I finished the edge off. And I think that looks nicer. It makes it look more like a full file folder. And so all I did there was I used a piece of file folder, or I just used a file folder, and I traced it as a template or a stencil, you know what I'm saying? So just kind of lined it up and trace like that, and then cut it. And that's not perfect, but kind of matches the other side now. Actually, I did that kind of backwards, didn't I? It should go down and then out. Whatever. It has a little notch. It makes it look like a file folder piece because it is a file folder piece. Anyway, so that one's going to go there. So C fans on the front, stripes on the back. And I'm going to come back in just a minute. I'll have those all inked and glued on. And I'm going to see if I can do something about the coloring on this camera. Okay. Covered that. And so I've got the fan paper, C-fan paper on one side and striped paper on the other. And now I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on this gluing flap. I can't wait till my new camera comes, because I'll tell you, my light, I mean, it's not my lighting. My lights are fine. It's the camera settings, and I've tried everything. It's just between the focusing issues, the coloring issues. It's just, I am not happy with the quality at all. It's like my fingernails to me look orange underneath this, but they're actually very, very pink. So it just throws off the lighting of everything. You'll notice sometimes it's a shaky video. I don't know. Whatever. We're just going to make do with what we have until we get the new one in. Okay, so I've glued that onto there. Now, this pocket in the front is only going to be used to stick a tag down in, so I don't need this side open. So I can go ahead and glue that down. So I'm just going to put some glue up here. Try to see what I'm doing. Okay. Glue that down. Okay. Glue that shut. And then we'll be able to put tag down in that later. In the meantime, we have our flap finished there. Okay, let's go to the back. And this is, I think, let me make sure. Yep. That's the flap for in the back. And I'm going to do the same thing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Dropping things. I'm going to glue that in there like so. Just like that. Okay. Okay. And again, this one in the back here is only going to have a tag booklet stuck down in it, so I don't need to leave the side open. So I'm going to glue it down just like I did the other one. I always get way too heavy-handed with the glue. Okay, rub all the seepage off of there. All right, there's that one. Boy, it is really coming together, isn't it? Okay, so what's next? What's next? Okay. All right, I know what's next. Let's do inside of, let me see, where would this be? This would be between folder 1 and 2, right here on our plain blue. okay, on our plain blue. We're going to bring in our flap. Let's see, it would be this one, okay, and that is going to go here. And so what I'm going to do with that flap is I'm going to also cover that one with some striped paper. And while I'm thinking about stripes, I am going to get out the sheet of paper that has the pockets on it. Be this one. And I'm going to cut out the striped pockets. So I'm going to ink those up, and I'm going to glue them on each corner. One on this corner and one on this corner, the striped pockets. And I'm going to back my flap with striped paper. Okay, so I will be right back. Okay, just go ahead and glue this on. Squeaky chair. Actually, it's not really squeaky, it's creaky and groany. All right. Just gonna stick that in there. Okay, and this one, nope, I sealed that one closed as well. So that one, because that way you could stick things in from the top. If you want to stick things in from the side instead, then glue the top part down and leave the side open. But I did that with a couple of the other ones. This one I'm going to go ahead and glue down. That's up to you, whichever ones you want to glue down or leave open. Okay. So there's the flap. And then these were my pockets. I inked those. And now I'm going to glue those down. Oops. And I think I have dog hair on my, into my glue bottle. Gross. Okay. My goodness, this chair just keeps creaking more and more and more. One of these days I'm going to be on the floor, you guys. Okay. So if these little gluey flap things that I included on these pockets, if those want to peek up and show behind your pocket, you can trim those down more. Or you can cut them completely off and just glue the pocket down if you want to. Whatever you want to do. I just think they're handy. Being on there gives you a place to glue down, and it doesn't make your pockets smaller. Whereas if you didn't have them and you had to put the glue on the actual pocket, it kind of makes your pocket smaller. Okay. Now we're cooking. Pocket flap. All right, we'll do some more on each of these pages, but I want to just get the base part put together. So let me check my list. I have a list. Okay, so now we're going to move on to, let's see, it would be this page, the plain tan that we did. It would be between folder number 2 and folder number 3. So the in between, it would be where we put hinge 2 at when we hinged them together. So what we need now is our little pockets that we made a while back. Remember those? All those little pieces we have set aside to do something with later. Okay, we need that. Both of those. And we also need our flap. The last big one. That one. We're going to need if you're making yours just like mine, you're going to need the collage paper. Let me find it. Give me just a second. Looks like a bunch of pictures collaged. I know I have one. There it is. Oh, doggone it. I'm dropping things. All right, that's what we're going to need next if yours is going to look like mine. Okay. What I'm going to do is take half of this, okay, and I'm going to cover the back side of that flap over here. So I'm going to take half of the sheet and use it for that. And then that leaves me half a sheet over here. So that will leave me enough to cover this pocket and this pocket if I cut very carefully. Okay, so I may do a little bit of that on camera, not all of it. Let me bring my paper trimmer over here. Okay. Put the lid on my glue so I'm not making any more messes. All right, I need to cut the white border off of my paper. My printer does print borderless. Not all printers do print borderless. Some of them do. Mine has the option to print borderless. However, from what I read online, they said the more you print borderless or on the borderless setting, the shorter the lifespan of your printer. For whatever reason that is. I don't know if it's from ink spillage over, you know, I'm not sure. So I kind of quit printing borderless unless I really need to. I don't know how much truth is in that, but I didn't want to risk it. So I print most of my stuff with a border now. Okay, so I'm just going to mark where I want to trim that. Okay, so that is going to go for the inside of that flap, and I will, you know, I'll trim it down better. You know, I'll make it file folder shaped. I'll trim it down better and ink it and glue it down here in a minute off camera. So let's take the rest of what we have now, and yeah, there's plenty there to do that. So I'm just going to take part of it and do one pocket, and I'll take the other half and I'll do the other pocket. I'll cut it, okay? And I'm gonna make it fit around my pocket edges. So I'm not gonna do that on camera. You know how to cut paper. I'll be right back. Okay, so let's go ahead and glue this flap down where it goes. Right inside there. And because I'm leaving this one open at the top, I can go ahead and glue down the side here. Ugh. Okay. I think that's going to stay. And then I have my pockets. Okay, so I'm only going to glue down the sides and the bottom. Try to keep my glue application under control. It's kind of wanting to volcano out, so I'm not even squeezing the bottle. Okay. Ah! I better wipe that off. And up. Okay. Maybe I better tip that upright for a while. Okay. And now this pocket. Still got a little heavy-handed with the glue. Okay. All right. And then we'll add little decorative labels and all that stuff later. So we're just trying to get the main construction down. Okay. All right. So let me check my list here, and then we'll be ready for the next step. Okay. So next step is we're going to do the rest of our flaps. Except for these two. I'm going to set these off to the side. Those were the ones made with the center tab, and those flip up. I'm going to set those off to the side. We're going to work with this one, and then we'll work with the two that are the same size that go in the back. So let me set those off just for a minute. Let's work with this one here. That's the one that was 5 1/8 tall, and then 4 1/8 total. And then the 1/2 inch flap right there. So 3 5/8 plus the 1/2 inch flap made 4 1/8, and it was 5 1/8 tall. So we're going to work with that flap. And that one is going to go in the front of our journal. It is going to go right here. Okay. And it has the double, kind of the double flip. Okay. So we need the ephemera page that has our journaling cards on it. We're going to be using this one here. Now, when we cut this out, let me just cut it out roughly. Show you what I'm talking about. Now, when I printed that, I printed it double-sided. I printed some tan paper on the back because it does show. So if you have that capability, you might want to think about printing that one double-sided. That's the only one so far that I've printed double-sided, and I'm pretty sure I made a note of that in the materials list. I've tried to make a note in the materials list which ones I did double-sided. So, journal card page with kids, double-sided. Yep, made that note. Okay, so let me get my little paper trimmer so you can see better. I am going to cut straight across the top on that. I'm going to cut it straight down the one side. But I'm leaving this white border that printed over here. I'm going to cut it straight across on the bottom. Okay. And now I've left that border. And I'm going to take bone folder or a stylus or something and a ruler, or you can get out your scoreboard if you want to dig out your scoreboard. And I'm just going to kind of score that a little bit so it makes a nice fold, nice crisp edge. Okay. And so essentially what I've done now is I've made a gluing flap out of the white paper. I'm going to go ahead and trim from my score line or my fold out at an angle. Do the same on that side. And then I can ink that up, ink around all the edges, And I'm going to glue that just like so. Okay? All right. I'm going to glue it right on there. Okay? Okay, now we're going to use another ephemera sheet that's in the kit. This one has the slotted pocket and the 3 sizes of tags that fit inside. This one I also printed double-sided with tan on the back side because it's going to show on the back side of the tags. Okay, so I had to pause for a second. I had a visitor. All right, so I've cut out the basic part of this, and so I wanted to show you that there are instructions printed on this for the slotted pocket. So what you'll want to do is cut out the basic rectangular shape. You can cut that freehand or cut it with a little paper trimmer. Okay, so that is our basic shape for that. Now let's take it over here to our flap and make sure it fits. And I think it just fits a little bit tighter than I want it to, so I am going to go ahead and trim it down just a hair on each side. I'm doing each side so that way my slots will still be centered. Okay. Let's try that. Yeah, I kind of like the way that fits a little bit better. Okay, so the next step for doing these is if you've got a small hole punch, that works great for doing these. I know I'm not the only designer that puts some of these in their digital kits, but most of my kits have something like this in them. If you've got a small hole punch like this, I can reach in there, then that works great to get that hole. Or if you have a crocodile, using the smaller hole punch, you can punch those holes out. And if you don't have a hole punch, that's okay. You don't have to punch the holes. You can just cut the slot open with your craft knife and let it go. You don't have to do this part. I just think it looks a little nicer when you do. Okay, so that's what it would look like on the back. Okay, so let me set that off to the side. I'm going to bring in my cutting mat. And a craft knife. And I'm not guaranteeing how sharp this is. It's probably not very sharp. All right, and I'm going to take a straight edge and let me zoom you down just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to line my straight edge up on the black line. I'm going to make 2 cuts. I'm going to make one on the one side of the black line and one on the other side of the black line. So that way I've cut a slot. I'll show you. So I've got the black line on that side of my ruler, see? And I'm going to just cut from hole to hole, only from hole to hole. Okay, and then I'm going to go to where now I've just about covered the black line. It's under my ruler. So I'm doing the top of the black line and the bottom of the black line, I guess you could say. So I've cut the black line out of it. Okay, so I've made a slot. Now the black line's gone. I'm going to do the same thing for this one and that one. Okay, so I cut all 3 slots, and now I just want to do a quick ink on the edges. Being careful not to rip that. Okay, And I don't know, you could try to ink the slots if you really wanted to. Okay, good enough. All right, now when we glue this on, we only want to glue right here across the top. Across the top, down the sides next to the holes, okay, on the very, very edge. Very, very, very edge. Down the sides. And then only on the very, very bottom. That's it. So basically you're just doing the very outer edges. You can do it a little heavier at the top than anywhere else, but you're just doing around the edges. Because if you glue anywhere else, you will glue these slots closed and then your tags won't go in. And darn it, I am seeing some of my notes that I had written. There we go. Didn't want to see those in there. Okay, and then we'll add the tags in there later. So that goes there. Now on the back side, I'm going to go ahead and ink this just in case a little bit of that shows. Okay, on the back side, I'm going to use some of the striped paper. You should have still a piece of that left, a small piece of that left, and you should still have, I think, a full sheet of that left. I'm checking my, checking my materials list, yes. Okay, so I'm going to cut a piece of the striped paper to fit on the back of this. And I think I will go ahead and cut and ink and glue that off camera. Okay, so now we are ready to glue that on. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the flap. And this one is going inside folder 1. And you kind of put it anywhere you want to. Put it all the way at the bottom. You can put it in the middle, wherever you want to put it. Okay. And on this particular folder, I decided to leave the side open to be able to tuck something in there. So all I'm going to do is put some glue across the top part here on this one. So glue it shut up there. There we go. Ugh. Okay, so there's that one. All right, one more thing before we go on this video. We're going to go on back to the back to the third folder. So inside there, folder 3, we're going to go to the inside. And this is where I had those smaller flaps. And they both went over here. So the back sides of these, I used striped paper. So I don't have enough scrap left. So I am going to use a new sheet of striped paper to cover the back sides of those. Okay. The front side, I am going to use this page. So it is the one that has the square pocket, the pair of square pockets. It has a big journaling card, or like looks like a big label, and then it has what looks like a title page for a book on it. Okay, and I did print that double-sided as well, so that when you pull these out and you flip them over, they have a nice nice tan background on the back side of them. So that's up to you. But anyway, so what I used to cover the flaps here on the front is I ended up using these two square pockets. So instead of using them for square pockets, I liked the look with the label on them to use for my flaps. So I'm just going to cut these out to the correct size to fit each one of my flaps. And I'm going to cover the back side with striped paper. Okay, so I really didn't have to trim these down much, just cut off the little gluing flaps that were there to make them pockets, and just used the square part, and it was pretty much the right size, like I planned, but forgot that I had. All right, so this is the last thing we're going to do for today in this video, is go ahead and glue these flaps down. So I just kind of laid them out roughly where I wanted them first before I glued them down. So, okay. This glue and I are not getting along today. And I'm only gluing down one side of the flap. Ugh, put the lid on this. It's going everywhere. I'm only putting the glue on one side. Because I want to leave this one open for tucking things into the side. So I'm going to glue across the top. Glue the top shut and leave the side open. Okay. All right. Let that dry. There is that. Okay, so that is it for today. When we come back, we're going to put the flap pockets on there, and then I think we're going to get started with some fun stuff, the fun embellishing kind of things. Okay? All right, so I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Happy crafting. Bye.